Good morning, class, and thank you for taking the time to watch my video on women in the Revolution. I chose the first one on the list, Abigail Adams, primarily because ever since watching the HBO miniseries John Adams, which was based on David McCullough's book, I found her a fascinating character, so I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and learn a little bit more. Hopefully I could share a few tidbits and insights from my readings, and hopefully you can get some out of it. As per the discussion prompts, kind of following the questions asked of how we can look at her life and examine just a little bit of how influential she was or was not, as the case may be with some of the questions. The first question posed, first, is she noteworthy? And if so, why? Politically speaking, yes, she absolutely is noteworthy. And as pointed out in several of the resources, her political involvement began at a very young age. She was married to John at about 20 years old. He was about 9 years older than she was. And she was involved from the beginning of her marriage in politics and understanding what he was doing and giving as much insight as possible into what he was doing and kind of being his confidant. As one of the writings indicated, she began a decades-long apprenticeship prior to becoming First Lady. She had a lot of experience by the time she reached that point. Second question, could another woman have taken her place? It must be noted first, counterfactual history is really, really hard. So stating that someone else could have or would have done something different or better is, of course, purely speculative. We don't know what would have happened if another woman was in her place. Could someone have taken her place? Absolutely. Absolutely, somebody could have been in her place, but would she have had the same impact that Abigail Adams had? Probably not, based on what we see, what we know about her and her writings, her influence on John himself was very positive, and she was very well learned, very well read, highly educated woman. A lot of it was self-educated. She read extensively, and it shows in her writings. The question is posed, what challenges are there to her image? Not many, to be honest. There's not a lot of negative views of Abigail Adams out there. The only one that stands out is that she is often referred to as being far more influential on her husband than any other First Lady. But that it was Martha Washington who was first referred to as Presidentess. She was, so in other words, not a negative against Abigail, but maybe a challenge to her being the first person of her kind, and that Martha Washington was perhaps a similar figure sooner, and she helped teach Abigail, sorry about that. Suffering from the flu a little bit too, so I'm struggling through this. So Martha Washington taught Abigail a lot of how to be politically active. Again, married to John when she was very young. According to Middlecoff in the textbook reading, Abigail Adams had wit and warmth to match his own. And on the eve of the Revolution, she had a maturity of judgment that he, John, would not attain for years. She reported of women who, quote, made themselves felt by enforcing the law, in particular by punishing hoarders and violators of boycott agreements. Abigail Adams once reported one such instance in 1777 in which women in Boston took action to regulate the distribution of sugar and coffee, both scarce articles during the war. Her report described how some women set upon merchants who have secreted a large quantity of these commodities. So in other words, they were going after people that were hoarding materials during the Revolutionary War. She was, again, extremely well-read person, deeply cared for her family and the family of others, took other children into the White House when their fathers were dealing with alcoholism. She looked out for other people's kids. She extended her graciousness to people like Thomas Jefferson, even after years of rift between him and her husband, rather. So she was a very caring woman, in addition to being very well read and very thoughtful about what was going on. And on that note, in terms of who else could have done her job, it's important to understand she gave birth to 6 children, and out of those 6, only 2 lived past her. And 3 of them died before she was ever, by the time she was First Lady, 3 had died. 1 died while she was First Lady. So to carry on the strength and have the fortitude to be able to continue to be a strong mother, strong wife, and strong caregiver for others, in addition to these incredible hardships, as anyone who has children knows, devastating losses that she had dealt with in her personal life. And she continued to go on and be a tremendous influence to her husband and to others in that environment. For suggested readings, I highly encourage going to Project Gutenberg and looking at her own writings, looking at her writings to her husband. And brilliant writer. I mean, she just had a brilliant way with words, very clearly, very well read, and very thoughtful person who I encourage you to read more of if you get the chance. So that's just kind of a brief insight into Abigail Adams. Please visit the bibliography for a few more resources, and thanks for watching.